Good afternoon. My name is Jarryd Dabreo, and today I'm going to perform three contrasting pieces from three contrasting plays. The first being The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare, the second being The Catapult Ghost by Oscar Wilde, and thirdly, The Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. The first scene I'm going to be performing is Act 1, Scene 3 of Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare. The role of Shylock. Shylock is a Jewish moneylender. In this scene, he lends out 3,000 ducats for 3 months to Bassanio. Bassanio assures Shylock that Antonio will make good on the loan. But Shylock is doubtful, seeing as to how Antonio's wealth is invested in his ships abroad and may fail. As soon as Antonio arrives into the scene, Shylock, aside, confesses his hatred for him. The play The Merchant of Venice was written around the period of 1590 to 1599 in the 16th century during the Renaissance period. The play is set in Venice, a city known for its glitz and glamour, and also for being a very famous trading hotspot. The play draws inspiration from three main sources, the first one being Fiorentino's Il Balcone, which is a medieval collection of stories. Many believe that The Merchant of Venice is also a retelling and a reinterpretation of one of these stories. The second is the Gesta Romanorum, which lends in inspiration to the idea of the three caskets, out of which Portia's suitors must choose in order to win her hand in marriage. The last and most notable source of inspiration is Christopher Marlowe's 1580s play titled The Jew of Malt, which mirrors The Merchant of Venice's lead roles and riches. I will now perform the piece. I would also like to invite my co-actor Angad Diman to play the role of Bassanio with me. $3,000. Well,
Aye, sir, for 3 months.
for 3 months. Well,
For the which, as I told you, Antonio shall be bound.
Antonio shall become bound. Well,
May you steady me? Will you pleasure me? Shall I know your answer?
$3,000 for 3 months, and Antonio bound.
Your answer to that.
Antonio is a good man.
Have you heard any imputation to the contrary?
Oh, no. My meaning in saying he is a good man is to have you understand me that he is sufficient. Yet his means are in supposition. He hath an ox he bound for Tripolis, another in the Indies. I understand, moreover, upon the Rialto, he hath a third in Mexico, and a fourth for England, and other ventures he hath squandered abroad. But ships are but boards, and sailors but men. There be land rats and water thieves and land thieves, I mean pirates. And then there's the peril of waters, winds and rocks. The man is, notwithstanding, sufficient. 3,000 ducats. I think I may take his bond.
Be assured you may.
I will be assured I may, and that I may be assured, I will bethink me. May I speak with Antonio?
If it pleases you to dine with us.
Oh, why, yes, to smell the pork, to dine with a habitation which your prophet the Nazarite conjured the devil into. I will buy with you, sell with you, walk with you, talk with you, and so following. But I will not eat with you, drink with you, nor pray with you. What news upon the Rialto? Who is he who comes here?
This is Signor Antonio.
How like a fawning publican he looks. I hate him for he is Christian. But more for that, in low simplicity, he lends out money gratis and brings down the rate of usance here with us in Venice. If I could catch once upon the view, I will feed that the ancient grudge I bear him. He hates our sacred nation, and he rails, even there where merchant most do congregate on me, my bargains, and my well-won thrift, which he calls interest. Cursed be my tribe if I forgive him. The second piece I'm going to be performing is from The Catapult Ghost by Oscar Wilde. In this scene, the Catapult Ghost illustrates his plans to terrify Professor Otis and his family. The play is set in the 19th century in the English countryside in the Catapult Chase mansion. The forgetful Catapult Ghost keeps having to remind himself of what he has just done and where he has just been. The Catapult Chase mansion is home to Gothic architecture, oak sculpturing, stained glass windows, and gargoyle structures. All the makings in the archetype of a great horror. This piece differs from my first in being light-hearted and humorous in its setting, tone, pace, and environment. I will now perform the piece. I have been having a little rest in my coffin and taking a little thought. These Americans really need to be taught a lesson. They're simply begging for it, and I am sure I can satisfy. It is a grand plan, thoroughly orchestrated. I begin at midnight, of course, in the master bedchamber, where I plan to seize the professor by the hand, give her at him from the foot of the bed, and stab myself 3 times in the throat to the sound of slow music. What do you think of this? Oh, I already showed you this, didn't I? Could I be losing my concentration? Hardly seems possible. In ghost circles, my concentration has been absolutely unrivaled for 300 years. Bothered, back to the task at hand. Alright, having reduced Professor Otis to a trembling jelly, I shall place a clammy hand on Mrs. Otis's forehead and hiss into the professor's ear the awful details of the day she shall die. Over to the daughter's room. Now, the daughter has never insulted me in any way, and she is rather pretty and gentle and so on. But be thorough, I shall have to deal her a hologram or two from the wardrobe, and if time permits, gravel at the counterpane with palsy twitching fingers. And finally, the boys. Oh, they shall be my chief pleasure, the little insects. First, I shall stand between their beds and place a heavy foot over each of their chests, producing the stifling sensation of despair. Did I mention grabbing at the counterpane in the daughter's room? Grapple at the counterpane with palsy twitching fingers. Where am I? I did, didn't I? Where am I? What am I doing? Oh yes, I am stifling the boys. Then, standing between their beds in the form of an icy cold green corpse, till they come fully awake and paralyzed with fear, I shall, as my final sensation, throw off my winding sheet, crawl around the room in bleached white bones, and one rolling eyeball in the character of Dumb Daniel or the Suicide Skeleton. Any questions? The last piece I'm going to be performing is from Death of the Salesman by Arthur Miller. In this scene, Biff comes clean about his career choices to his father, Willie. After being filled with ideals, dreams, and hopes that could realistically never see the light of day, Biff, on his last straw, finally breaks down in front of his family. The play is set in New York and Boston during the year 1949 in the Great Depression of America. This piece differs from the previous two in firstly being a work of non-fiction, seeing as to how the play is modeled after Arthur Miller's own life and the life of his salesman uncle. Hence, it differs in strong emotion, setting, environment, tone, and pace. I will now perform the scene. Now hear this play. This is me. You know why I had no address for 3 months? I stole a suit in Kansas City and I was jailed. I stole myself out of every good job in high school, but I never got anywhere because you blew me so full of hot air, I could never stand taking orders from anybody. That's whose fault it is. And it's goddamn time you caught it. I had to be boss big shot in 2 weeks and I'm through with it. Willie, I ran down 11 flights with a pen in my hand today. And suddenly I stopped, you hear me? And in the middle of that office building, do you hear this? I stopped in the middle of that building and I saw the sky. I saw the things that I love in the world. The work, the food, the time to sit and smoke. And I looked at the pen in my hand and I said to myself, what the hell am I grabbing this for? Why am I trying to become what I don't want to be? What am I doing in an office making a contemptuous, begging fool of myself when all I want is out there, waiting for me the minute I say I know who I am? Why can't I say that, Willie? Bob, I'm a dime a dozen, and so are you. I am not a leader of men, Willie, and neither are you. You were never anything but a hard-working drummer that landed in the ashtray like all the rest of them. I'm $1 an hour. I tried 7 states and I couldn't raise it. $1 an hour. Do you gather my meaning? I'm not bringing home any prizes anymore, and you're going to stop waiting for me to bring them home. Bob, I am nothing. I am nothing, Bob. Can't you understand that? There's no spite in it anymore. I'm just what I am. That's all. Will you let me go for Christ's sake? Will you take that phony dream and burn it before something happens? I would like to now move on to the modification task, the second variant, where I must perform the first half of my monologue as if my character was discussing the situation with a very close friend in a lift. Oh, hi. Good morning. Oh, boy, do I have something to tell you. Man, shall we? Seventh, right? Right then, where was I? Alright, so I have been having a little rest in my coffin and thinking a little thought. No, hear me out. These Americans really need to be taught a lesson. They're simply begging for it. And I am sure I can satisfy. Oh, good morning. Shall we? Right, so then, it is a grand plan, thoroughly orchestrated. I begin at midnight, of course, in the master bedchamber, when I plan to seize the professor by the neck, give her a hinge at the foot of the bed, and stab myself 3 times in the throat to the sound of slow music. Excuse me. Ah, right then. What do you think about this? Oh, I already showed you this, didn't I? Could I be losing my concentration? Oh, good morning. Shall we? Right then. Where was I? Alright. Having reduced Professor Otis to a trembling jelly, I shall place a clammy hand over Mrs. Otis's forehead. Excuse me. I shall place a clammy hand over Mrs. Otis's forehead. Oh, thank God. Now that they're gone, I shall place a clammy hand over Mrs. Otis's forehead and hiss into the professor's ear the awful details of the day she shall die. What do you think? Good plan, eh? Oh well, that's us. I would like to now move on to the reflection task. Question 2. How did your understanding of the writer, composer, or genre influence your interpretation and performance? As mentioned before in Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare, he has used various sources of inspiration for the same. His main idea was to comedically question and criticize the expressions, undertones, and colloquialisms prevalent during that time in themes such as justice, love and relationships, morals, and bureaucracy. The highlight of this play is the definite societal and economic conditions prevalent in Venice. This inspired me to don a very sarcastic character for Shylock. I wanted to mirror the attitude of a man who has just been visited by people he knows has backtalk behind him and have now approached him for help. In the Catapult Ghost, Oscar Wilde has drawn inspiration from fairy tales, Gothic literature, and his own experience living in America. The major themes involved in the Catapult Ghost are most definitely the culture clash between a 16th century ghost and a 19th century American family. Playing into the normal stereotypes of American life, Oscar Wilde has been able to interpret his understanding of them in a certain way. This inspired me to really take on the larger-than-life exponenza and persona of the Catapult Ghost. I found this interesting because the private self, as seen by Oscar Wilde, was considered by the Catapult Ghost to be not only his existence, but also his presence in the Catapult Chase Manor and also the Catapult Chase Manor itself. Lastly, for that of a salesman, Arthur Miller chooses the backdrop of the Great Depression during 1949 and his house in Boston, as well as the life of his salesman uncle, as inspirations for a play. Seeing so, I was able to then really relate with Biff, who on his last straw gives in to the expectations that were held from his family. Miller's main concept was to question the American dream, the promise that irrespective or regardless of your background and societal status, you could always gain the life that you wanted only if you worked hard. The next question. How does the extract you performed in one of the pieces fit into the overall story or plot arc of the piece? Shylock's piece in The Merchant of Venice, Act 1, Scene 3, proves to be monumental in furthering the plot of the play. In this scene, Shakespeare levies the life of a man, the man who has put his life into the hands of a mortal enemy, and the outcome depends on fortune, that is, if Antonio's ships in fact make it back from the high waters and the perils of pirates. Shakespeare also portrays two very diametrical characters in that sense. Shylock, on one hand, who is cunning, crafty, and belongs to a group of people who have been prejudiced their entire lives. And then, on the other hand, Antonio, who is romantic, naive, and also very easygoing. He belongs to a group of people that have enjoyed the riches and the well-beings of society. The piece, in this sense, serves to further the plot as Antonio and Shylock end up meeting in court because Antonio has in fact defaulted on the loan. The money that Shylock lends to Bassanio is used by Bassanio to then travel to where Portia lives, whom he eventually marries. And it is Portia, in the end, who dresses up as a man and comes to court to save Antonio, which I learned is the important part of the plot. The next question. What have you learned about your own strengths and limitations during your preparation for today's performance? I have learned that it has been extremely difficult for me to gain a spatial sense of the stage in terms of limitations. I also find it difficult to pay attention to the nitty-gritties and the finer details of the characters. And in terms of strength, I really think I was able to emotionally relate to the backgrounds and the society and the environment in which the characters were played. I was also able to memorize the pieces relatively quick, and keeping the dramatic themes in mind, I was able to execute them on stage. Lastly, how have you developed your physical and vocal skills during the preparation for today's performance? I found that organizing and categorizing my emotions in practicing for these pieces, I was able to then call them on whenever I needed. A daily round of grounding exercises and yoga really helped to put things in perspective and was able to then ground me and make me certain of the roles I wanted to perform. Thank you.